Hey everyone, it is I, Keith Garcia, Artistic Director of the FilmCenter and founder of the CinemaQ Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us at this screening of Rebel Dykes. Hope you enjoyed the film, especially because we have some great guests here to talk about the film that they made, and that would be the co-directors of Rebel Dykes, Sean A. Williams and Harri Shanahan. Hello, you
Hey.
two.
Hiya.
Thank you so much for joining us on this virtual landscape, especially across major time zones, and bringing, this film that is, of a place that a lot of folks here in America, I think, had no idea this history was going on at the time, and through the magic of your talent, we've been able to watch the story unfold. So let's just get into some questions. Can you tell us how you two met and how this very important slice of queer history came into your lives?
Well, we met about over 10 years ago because we started a band together, and that's actually how we met, because it was a big collective of women and non-binary people and just loads of people who were just playing instruments for the first time, this crazy band, and we just kind of like bonded over our love of film. So we'd quite often, share a bottle of wine and just plot little plans for the future. So we kind of always wanted to do something together. We're both from kind of artist moving image backgrounds, so we've never done something on this scale before. And Harri, who has made amazing animations that everyone will have just seen, also, while we were making this film, actually trained to do a master's in animation. So that was always the plan as well, was to get you from this amazing, talented drawer to full-time employed animator.
Yeah, so what happened was, it was Siobhan, who you've seen in the film a little bit. She wanted to make this oral history sort of presentation, do a bit of storytelling around her time as a young dyke in London. And long story short, when Sean saw Siobhan doing her talk about it, got very excited, and they started to chat about making a short film, and then that turned into a feature film. And I think at some point Sean drafted me in and was like, "Oh dude, the film we wanted to make, it's here." So yeah.
And really the plan was, because I already knew Siobhan again from the music scene, because she was a promoter who'd put on like lady fests and things like that in Manchester and UK, where we were all based. The plan was really just to like make a 10-minute clip for YouTube. But as soon as I heard the story, I was blown away, because it is a subject that is actually quite dear to me, and is a history that I really wanted to tell, because it was like a world that I kind of discovered when I went to uni to study photography. And I first like saw all of these kind of like pro-sex feminist amazing books like Della Grace and just all sorts of artists who really inspired me back in the day. So yeah, as soon as I heard it was about them and the kind of queer community around them, and all of the amazing things that they've done for us, like protesting Section 28, things that really impacted our lives, it was like the least we can do is like tell this story and give it some justice to them.
Well, and this time period in UK lesbian history has so many layers and ups and downs. How did you take this vast history and measure out just the right amount of stories that you wanted to tell? And are there any aspects of this bigger history that you had to leave out, and even if that's for potentially a future project down the road?
Yeah, I think we spoke to, partly we spoke to who we could find, who we could trace, who was willing to speak to us. And then we had a few perimeters, like we were saying, well, it's between, if you were in London between sort of 82 and 92, and we particularly wanted to talk to people who were squatting and musicians. We wanted to talk to people who were outside of the mainstream kind of establishment and living in these kind of communities. And there were certain places, there were certain sort of whole streets of like women's squats and things. So it was people who were around in those kind of times. So apart from those, and most of them do know each other. But yeah, there's loads of stuff that we could have talked about. I'd love to have talked more to Yvonne about the other sort of clubs that she was doing. We'd have loved to have talked more about the bands as well, I think, because that was something that was really important to us with our background. But we needed to. Well, we needed to make it about 80 minutes for a start. We could have done on for a million years. I think we could have made a whole film just about fish.
Yeah.
Made a whole film about the myths. So I think there was a lot, but it was just about, well, what's important? What was important to them? What and went on to be important? What's important now? And that was kind of how we selected things.
Yeah, and it was as we were kind of doing various edits and moving things around the timeline, it was like the crunch was when we decided to shape it around Chain Reaction, the SM Club, as being like this meeting place, post Greenham for them all, and then how that family and community made an impact after. And it was at that point that we were like, right, we've solved the problem, but we're going to have to effectively lose the 10 minutes of amazing stuff we've got about the bands that we really wanted in, or all of the plans to cover sex work as a much bigger section. It just all, we had to narrow it down.
We really wanted to talk about the links between San Francisco and the UK, and then we decided we're going to have to confine it a little bit to the UK, because otherwise, again, it could have been a global story. They were traveling all over. It wasn't just in London. They were meeting in London because people tend to run away from small towns in the UK and congregate in big cities but they went all over the place. So it could have been world Rebel Dykes, but
yes,
you get 80 minutes.
But there is going to be a film not made by us, but made by a supporter of ours who's Lulu in the film. She's currently making a film called Dyke 88, which will be the San Francisco story. So watch this space.
Nice.
And support Lulu.
Yeah,
because that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting.
Mm.
So the UK, I feel that there's the stereotype of British people being very prim and proper, and this story very much upends that thought. What is it about this movement in particular, this Rebel Dyke movement, that is actually so inherently very British and could really only happen in the UK? And I kind of say that as concurrently the story in America of the lesbian movement is, I'm not going to say it's not as interesting, because it's very important, but maybe not as exciting as the Rebel Dykes movement kind of seemed.
They're very much kind of like twin movements. I mean, there's so many of the people like we're just crossing over all the time. So, like just the way that On Our Backs and Quim are like two magazines from, across the pond, they're doing very similar things. But I do think that if it wasn't for, Saya from Finland and Bia from East Germany, these kind of like, renegades to like kickstart and maybe like poke the British people to not be as shy, and, that was the instigator. Maybe we still need instigators to like make British people wanna, I don't know. But I don't know, Harri, what do you think? Do you think it's the cabaret is the most British? I don't know.
Certainly,
The cabaret.
The cabaret show in the reaction definitely, very British, as Del said. I think sometimes, I think things in the UK can get quite concentrated, because it's like, I mean, like the States is like, United States is huge, but UK is really small. So I think, once you get together, I think it's easier to stay in touch, I guess. I think the political climate at the time, because it was so oppressive, it kind of did create this spirit of rebellion. But I think the fact that everybody was so young probably contributed to that as well. I think when you're 20, 21, you just want to go and kick some ass, don't you? You don't want to be told what to do. And I think that really comes through.
For each of you, what angle of this history was most important for you to tell in this film?
I was thinking this was kind of the most important angle and difficult one, was to tell the sex wars part right, because it's so often been told from the other side. In my head, it's the losing side, the ones who are on the wrong side of history. So it was like, how do we tell this story, but not get embroiled in what, the kind of just that as a battle and a distraction from like all of this amazing joyous life that they live. So it was how to tell that, and also how to like throw it up for viewers to make their own comparisons to today. I think that might be a thing when we're talking about Britain. Like, it is particularly hostile at the moment for basically rolling back trans rights. It seems to be a particularly hostile media atmosphere over here. I know it is over there a bit, but it seems to be ridiculous. So yeah, it's trying to get that story right.
It's balancing that. It's balancing the serious and the political stuff and the kind of more academic stuff with the sense of fun that people were having, and the family. For me, it was two things. It was the family and it was the creativity. It was that DIY aesthetic and this kind of way of all kind of ganging up together that for me is the same as like our underground scenes here in the UK now, and it really feels like a generation of my kind of queer family as well, talking to them and how they were together. So yeah, for me it was very much about the relationships.
Exactly. I was just thinking how, like with the footage that we've got that proves that a women's only space was trans inclusive. So it's just like the importance of like, that's the same, that's, if we lived there, we would have been their mates, we would have been in that same club ever, it's just that making that connection and realizing that and wanting to tell people that here's the evidence, like
yeah, the evidence that it's been there all along.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of like trans rights, when you look at modern lesbian life, modern queer life in the UK, what has changed the most since this movement for the better, and what has anything gotten truly worse or remained problematic?
I guess we kind of covered that, what I just said, but trying to take more of a positive spin on the negative that I've just said. Now we've got momentum with like the people that we brought together to do this film. They've always been like a queer family anyway, but there's a heritage project that goes alongside this film, and there's lots of performances, and there's exhibitions happening, and there's all sorts of activism that is in the works. And I feel like, okay, well, here's something positive, is that we can help give Rebel Dykes a voice, and Rebel Dykes in return are also helping to still fight for like future generations of queers and trans queers. So yeah, there's a positive.
I agree. I think the creativity is the same. I think there's the will to not be kind of tidied away into a closet is the same. I think that's even stronger. In fact, the way that like young people are now, like people are incredibly out and incredibly proud, younger and younger, and it's that's something that really has changed, I think. And I think something that we talk about towards the end of the film, that younger people, in school, you can talk about it in school now. You can have drag queen story time in school now, but of course you couldn't when we were in school because of Section 28. So there we go, there's a huge thing that's changed. Sex positivity, we're doing benefits for street sex workers now, rather than burning down strip clubs. So as feminists, I feel that we've come a long way in kind of not kind of trying to not oppress other people, and being more sex positive and more inclusive and more intersectional.
When did you both decide that to take your very creative and unique approach to animating and recreating with such style a large portion of this film? Was that from the jump, or did you just, as you were doing your research and putting the film together, be like, okay, we really got to do something because we don't have footage for this, or this is the best way that we're going to have fun with this film?
All of that, everything. It was, because we couldn't get our hands on stuff because there wasn't stuff. Literally, a lot of this project was trying to get people to look through their old photographs, and if they had, a VHS or whatever. and there wasn't that much footage. And yeah, it wasn't a funded film. We weren't paid to make this film. So that was a concern. But also we had a kind of like fuck it attitude to like, even if we had the money, we don't want the same shots of like London in the punk era. You know, like, it's quite a cliche, I guess, on like TV docs, particularly over here. I don't know, it seems to be the same footage. So even if we had the money, I'm going to stand by the strategy we adopted, which was, yeah, animation and recreation to kind of fill in and kind of playfully tell the story, because people's memories are so, you know, different, that we kind of wanted to kind of, yeah, play on that point and kind of have fun and like joy and kind of show what it would be like to actually live that life, you know?
Yeah, it's more about the kind of experience rather than how it actually looked. And I think so, you know, when Siân was in charge of all the recreation, and you can't tell in the film, apart from when we've got masks on, there are bits of the film where you may not be able to tell if it's recreated or not. And that's just about getting the tone right and the texture right and the, you know, and the feel of it. It was more important that it felt right than it looked absolutely, you know, historically bang on accurate. And I think, yeah, with the animation, it was just drawn from their own stuff, their zines, and the Rebel Dykes were constantly making zines and posters and flyers and sticking them up on the wall because there was no internet. So I wanted to go with that aesthetic when we were creating the animation. I thought it'd be easier than it was, and then I had to go back to school to learn it properly. Apparently, it's not something it's not something it's easy to teach yourself to do, but I'm really glad that I did. It's great fun with the characters. Creating the characters was really good. It was good fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what makes your film stand out is just that added style and creativity. I truly love the recreation of the when the activists tied themselves to the desk at the BBC News, and that recreation of that whole thing is it's great. So
It's so interesting that so many people that don't even know that happened anymore. So for a long time, like in popular culture over here, it was like, you know, the one thing that people might think if they didn't know a lesbian, they might know that, you know. In fact, it's the first time when I was really little that I even heard the word lesbian and had to ask my mum what it was. It was because of that. So, you know, it's good advertising.
For each of you, what did you uncover about this entire story and history that surprised you the most?
That's a really difficult question. I'm off the top of my head. I guess it was surprising to know that, you know, the kind of LGBTQ plus movement that we have today, that it isn't as old as I thought it was. I know, like, that it was kind of, they were such separate worlds. I don't think I really realized that it wasn't until the 80s really that, you know, gay men and queer women and, you know, punk lesbians, and, you know, that they all had something to fight, and that kind of brought more people together. I don't know.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. I was surprised by the kind of ferocity of the sort of separatism in the late 70s, early 80s, and kind of how that affected, you know, kind of lesbian culture like quite strongly. So that was a surprise. I was surprised by some of the tapes that we found and how much they sounded like all these little bands that we'd been in, but it was like 30, 40 years ago, and it was like, oh, there's some sort of thing about a bunch of women, you know, Dykes and non-binary people just get together and make a racket that has a sort of always has a similar feel to it, and I think that's just the feel of joy. So that surprised me in a good way. Yeah,
and surprising that no one had, you know, it wasn't a release that we would know already, because we're both big post-punk fans, and we were just finding bands that we'd never heard of, and I thought I knew that genre and era and even, like, you know, location, and it was like, wow, there's a whole list of bands. This needs to, yeah, hopefully there'll be a soundtrack after this for anyone who enjoyed the music.
That would be really cool. So what's next for Rebel Dykes, the film, and for each of you moving forward?
The film is doing festivals and it's going around the world, like touring, which is fun. And then we're going to have a small theatrical release, I think, in the UK because the British Film Institute have got involved in distribution. So that's incredibly exciting. That's like bucket list stuff for us.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. We're so pleased, and it wouldn't happen without like everyone's support. So like, thank you everyone for watching the film. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. We're already working on another short. We found another rebellious Dyke, but from a different background. Someone who's Spanish and grew up under Franco. So we're looking forward to talking to her. We need to raise her some money because she's getting lots of fines for feeding animals.
And I think we just
back to the Dyke community, back to rebels, but like a whole different flavor this time, and just one person rather than 20.
Yeah, I think having a small scalable project next is kind of what we want, just to get our head back in the game, because it was a long slog making this, and a lot of it was around, you know, work or ill health, or, you know, it was a big commitment, and it got massive. So it's September now.
Years, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Yeah,
yeah.
6 years, yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
But
so, yeah, we've come out from like shaking in the corner now, just about. But I do want to make another documentary. I'd love it to be like a full-time career. Yeah, that's the next step, is to figure out how to bloody do that, I guess.
We'll do this one, and then I might go off and do something mental with stop motion or something.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to go from nights and weekends to your everyday and funded.
Yeah, well, that would be good. Being paid at the start would be nice. No.
Yes. Well, that's very exciting. I love the direction that this film is going to continue to take in its own capturing of history, which thank you both for taking the immense time to get this all together and into audiences' eyes and brains, so that it's not left behind. Is there anything you'd like to leave with our audience today? Just moving forward, with something they can take with them to an action even that they can take after watching your film?
Just going to say again what Lisa said. The whole point of coming out is to come out as yourself. So be yourself. It's very important.
Yeah, and also think about like what stories that you want to pass on. Think about what your personal archive is. Have a chat with someone who might know that about archives locally. Get in touch with LGBT curators. Just we don't want stories like this. This could have so easily been lost. Just a couple of tapes and there wouldn't have been this film. It would have been full animation, wouldn't it? So yeah, like there must be lots of stuff that you need to save.
Yeah, don't throw anything away. Keep all your posters, keep all your flyers. Yeah,
and we want this to start intergenerational conversation. So, you know, look out for each other, and, you know, start projects, start bands, do what, you know.
Talk to mad old women at gigs.
Yeah.
Do it. It's very important. That's us now, like mad old people at gigs.
Well, sound advice, and I think that's great. For Denver, for local audiences, just so you know, there's a nonprofit organization called Art Hive that is working very hard in archiving things that people think, well, you know, like this, where it's like, why would anyone want that tape I made? Why would anyone want that poster, that flyer? Art Hive certainly look into here locally. But thank you both for making this great piece of art and history, and for keeping on in a new direction. I'm excited to see what comes for both of you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Wonderful festival.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe we'll cross our paths sometime in the near future when we're all sort of back to normal.
Travel again.
All right, and thank you, CinemaQ audience, for watching this film and checking out this Q&A. We'll see you at the next one, okay?